In a new age of watchmen, a team of individuals, pooling their talents and abilities, come together to bring analysis, reaction, and comedy to the fold. This is their chronicle. This is Accounting Arc.
Okay, welcome everyone. We are here on another ARC podcast, and we are looking at our non-traditional accountants. We're continuing to look at our non-traditional accountants. And with me today is Rebecca DuPree. I hope I said that correctly.
Yes.
Or Becky. May I call you Becky?
Yes. Becky is what I go by among friends.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Why don't you introduce yourself really quick and tell us who you are, where you're located, and what do you do? What do you currently do?
My name is Becky DuPree. I'm from a little town in Texas called Mercedes, at the very southern tip of the state. I graduated down there from the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley, with a degree in accounting. I also have a master's degree in business administration from Sam Houston State University. I have 17 years of experience in public accounting and about the same amount in internal audit.
Wow. So public accounting, internal audit. But actually, I think you told me currently you're involved in property tax?
Yes, I work for the tax assessor collector.
Can you tell us a little more about that? Because I don't think that's something students are typically told about in school.
Well, I'm internal audit to the county tax office. There's a variety of different businesses and governmental entities, and the common thread is they all need internal audit just to make sure they're in compliance with the various laws, to make sure that there's no fraud going on. I'm also a certified fraud examiner. And to make sure that all their internal controls are working as intended. So that's one of the things that I do for the county.
Cool. And is there what do you find particularly interesting or invigorating about the work that you do? Because it sounds like you've been doing this for a while.
Well, in both public accounting and internal audit, one of the things that I really love is data analysis, taking two databases and matching them to find anything that looks out of order or that sort of thing. One of the things that I do currently, all the hotels in the county, they pay what's called a hotel occupancy tax. You pay it when you check out of a hotel, and that's paid to the city, the county, and the state. Well, I'm able to download the file from the state and compare it to what was reported to the county and identify any discrepancies. And we're able to go out and collect some additional money that way.
I'm so glad you tied it back into data analytics. That is such a hot topic right now in the profession, and it seems like everyone's a lot of schools are starting to offer that, and it's a good example of actually, and it's kind of interesting because you really are audit because you're actually basically sounds like you're tying it back to what they say was collected but really doing at the county level, but you're doing it for the collection of tax. So you're actually kind of a hybrid of both, sort of.
Right.
Interesting. How did you come to do that? Like, what drew you originally to accounting? I think you said you started out in public accounting. Can you share us a little bit more of that story?
In college, I had watched a little too much LA Law and thought I wanted to be a lawyer. I went to when I was a freshman in college, I went to the pre-law advisor and asked for advice on what to major in, and he asked me, well, what are you good at? Major in what you're good at so you can get your grades up good and high so that when you apply to law school, it'll look good. And I'd taken in high school an accounting class and got the highest grade in the class, and I really seemed to enjoy that. So I majored in accounting with an eye towards law school, but didn't end up going to law school. The nice thing was most people that pursue a career in law major in something like political science, which when you graduate with that degree, it's hard to find someone that's going to employ you as a political scientist. Whereas in accounting, there's one nice thing about accounting is there's always going to be a demand for it. I don't care how much AI is out there. Someone's always going to want to have a human look and make sure that they're not being defrauded. So I immediately after graduation, my first job was in internal audit at Hidalgo County, down where I was from. I worked there for 3 years, and then I moved to up in Conroe. I worked for the Montgomery County Auditor's Office for about 5 years. Passed my CPA exam, and the particular boss I worked for in Montgomery County was one of the worst that I had ever had. When I passed my CPA exam, she said, which she was not a CPA, she said, well, it's not a requirement to work here to be a CPA, so you can't. I can't offer you any more money. And oh, by the way, to take any of your continuing professional education credits, you're going to have to take your vacation to do that. We're not going to pay you in the county to take your CPE. So it was clear to me that she kind of resented me being a CPA and her not. So I got a job at an accounting firm in San Antonio, Texas. Moved over there, was there for 12 years, learned a lot in public accounting. The partner actually took me out to a client, dropped me off with last year's work papers, and said, go at it, which was
really?
it was kind of a nightmare, but it was a good learning experience. I ended up with like 12 pages of review notes from the manager that
Oh my goodness.
that reviewed it. But anyway, I learned. I was with that firm for 12 years, and they were in the process of being bought out. So the managing partner asked me to see if I could find someplace else to go. They actually let me stay on while I was looking, and actually hired somebody to come in and help me with my resume.
Oh wow!
While I was working there, and so I wasn't having a lot of luck in San Antonio in finding anything. So I asked my spouse. I said, "Can I look for something in Houston, which is where she's from?" And she said, "Sure." And sure enough, I had an interview and then a job. And she jokingly said, when you asked me, you said, "Can I look in Houston?" You were supposed to look. You weren't supposed to find. So back down I-10 we went, and I was there at that firm for 5 years. Now
And still doing audit at that time?
Yeah, my entire career has been spent in audit. I do income taxes on the side, just out of my house here. but I've either been in internal audit or in public audits.
Now it makes sense because I think one of the first times I met you was at the Houston CPA Society's tax conference, planning, I think it was, planning committee. Now it makes sense because when we talked earlier, I was thinking, I'm pretty sure I met you through the tax conference and I couldn't figure out why you were there. So you actually still do taxes on the side as well.
Yeah, I think we met when there was a student event there, and we were asking people with experience in the profession to come, and I think I got asked, and that's how I recall that we met.
Ah, wonderful. Well, and that's, a couple of things you mentioned there are things that I really love about our profession. So one, you said your employer actually helped you, kind of kept you on and helped you really find another job. And you said they helped someone with your resume. And then the fact too that you still come back and help with the student programs. I think that's so important. And it's something people don't realize, that a lot of us in the profession really like to give back, both to our teams as well as to the upcoming people in the profession.
Right. I'm a Leo, so I love attention. So give me a microphone and an audience, and I'm a happy camper.
No wonder you agreed so quickly to do this interview when I asked you. Well, I think I wanted to understand too. So you've taken us through to where you're working still in public accounting. And this is, well, I guess your second firm in public accounting.
Yes.
Can you continue your story from there? So how did that continue to where you got to the property tax office now?
Well, as you can probably tell, I am transgender. It's a long journey from there. As I said, I was raised in Mercedes, Texas. My mother had a flower shop, which at the time was kind of the hangout for the LGBT community in this little town, because she had a lot of floral designers, which so I had exposure to the LGBT community, and I knew there was something that wasn't quite right, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I knew about transgender people, but all of the people that I knew were attracted to men. I was attracted to women, and I thought, well, that's not me. Well, fast forward, I'm in San Antonio, and I read this article, and it just opened my eyes. It said basically, gender is a spectrum. It's not who you want to sleep with, it's who you want to be. And it just clicked. Well, at that time, I'd been married for quite some time, and we had a little child together. So obviously, when I shared that with my spouse, he was like, well, I married a man for a reason, which, I love my wife to death. She's stayed with me and been supportive. So I want to go ahead and give the clue on that story. But at the time, it was very scary. And I knew coming out was not really an option at that time in public accounting. So when we moved to Houston, I started working with a therapist here. And once I understood really who I was, it was something that I felt like I was having to put a mask on to go to work. And sure enough, well, let me back up. One of my coping mechanisms with to be able to wear my mask, as I said, was this Facebook page where I was Rebecca. Well, I'm out of town doing a bank audit, and I get a call from a marketing director of our CPA firm who found out about my Facebook page. And she said, well, one, that Facebook page has to come down, and two, I'm going to tell the partners about it.
Mm.
And that was really my lowest point. I really thought that my career was over, which at the time, my whole identity and my whole self-worth was determined by my career and its viability. As I look back on it now, it's like, well, if your career was so important to you, then burying this transgender side of you would have been the easy thing to do. But as I often discussed when I was going through this, is I felt like I was a mosquito being attracted to a mosquito zapper. I knew I was going to get zapped,
Oh,
but it kept attracting me that I really wanted to transition. And as I said, I love my wife to death, and we talked quite a bit, and we made a deal in that I wouldn't transition until after our daughter graduated from high school. So I'm still working at the CPA firm in Houston, and the partners know about it. They basically said that as long as I show up as male and continue to do my work, I'm okay. Well, they kind of changed the script on that, because one of the partners walked into my office one morning and says, I've got an offer you can't refuse. So they sent me out to this bookkeeping firm that they had just acquired that specialized in municipal utility districts. Well, keep in mind that I had spent my entire career in audit. That's what I was good at. That's what I didn't know anything about bookkeeping.
mm-hmm.
And particularly with some of these mud districts, it was really challenging. And before long, I noticed I got written up for my work, which is the first time ever. So I saw the handwriting on the wall. So I thought, well, I'll apply to the county to see how that works out over there. And make a long story short, I got hired for the Harris County Auditor's Office. Worked there for 5 years. The first year I was there, I came out to HR, and we developed a plan for me to transition on the job.
Oh, wow.
So I took a week off. Well, let me back up a sec. The other thing that happened in the meantime is I went to this meeting of the National Transgender Alliance that was meeting in Houston, and they had a drawing. Well, I'm usually pretty lucky, and I won the drawing, which was I guess a gift certificate, for lack of a better word, to get my name and gender marker changed on my driver's license.
Oh, wow.
So I wasn't ready to transition at the time that I won it, but I viewed it as one of the hints from the universe that I was on the right path. So I got that taken care of. And then when I was ready to transition, I took a week off. We went to Travis County to get the name and gender marker changed. After I came back from vacation, the name had been changed on my door, and one of the female bosses that I worked for, she actually came in and said, I fully support you in this.
Wonderful.
All the women in the office we all went out together to lunch, which really made me welcomed and appreciated.
Mm.
So I was there for about 5 years. Um, but the thing that you fear the most, sometimes that fear can actually bring it on.
Mm.
And I had a big fear of being fired because, as I said, my identity is so wrapped up in my career that seemed more horrible than any other possibility. Well, I'd come a long way since, working with a counselor and that sort of thing. And this was during COVID. We They brought in a new manager who I didn't get along well with, and he gave me a very bad evaluation. And I saw the handwriting on the wall, but again, as I think nature sometimes sends you clues and things happen for a reason. I had a fall and I broke my arm really bad.
Oh.
So I was on FMLA for probably 4 weeks. And as soon as I came back from that, I was terminated from the auditor's office.
Wow.
I had 5 years of great evaluations, and then all of a sudden I was fired. So that's one thing. I know this video is going out to college students. You may, as I did, experience job loss, but it's not the end of the world. You can go out there and find, particularly if you have good accounting / audit skills, there will be people out there that will find value. It may take some time, but again, it's not the end of the world. So on the same day that I was fired, I was hired by the tax office as an internal auditor, and I've been there now for about 3 years.
Wow, 3 years. So this is actually a lot of this is relatively well, actually, and you said pandemic, so a lot of this is really recent.
Yeah, so I've been with the county a total of 8 years.
Wow. I didn't realize, wow. When you and I first talked, I didn't realize all of that had happened. I thought a lot of that had happened earlier, like when I actually had known you at that time. Now to find out this has actually happened after I knew you. Oh my goodness. Well,
yeah, it's been rough a couple of years. On top of all that, I was recently diagnosed with cancer, and
oh my goodness.
And went through that. I've had a mastectomy, and now I've got to start. I've been through chemo, and then I have radiation still yet to go.
Wow. You are resilient, if anything.
I'm a survivor.
Having gone through all this, my goodness.
The thing, well, a couple things I want to say. First, if you have family that truly loves and supports you, you have it all. I've been so blessed with both my spouse and my daughter. They've always been in my corner, no matter what challenges I've faced, and I give all the credit to them for my survival and that sort of thing. But that's the one thing I would encourage. Your job they'll replace you tomorrow if something happens. It's only your family that you're not going to be replaceable as a spouse or as a parent.
Very well said. You know, your story is different than a lot of the other ones because of this aspect. I think your story is a little different than others that I have talked with. So one of my questions for you is, you know, if you had an opportunity to talk to other colleagues about sharing their story, and maybe in this case, it's particularly other trans colleagues, what would you say to them, and how would you engage? What would you encourage them to do?
I think it's very important to share your story because, um, when I began this process, one of the things I looked for were CPAs that had successfully transitioned. And frankly, there just weren't a lot of stories out there of anything that I could relate to. Um, so I think it gives hope to people out there. I recently, oh, I don't know if I've shared this story with you previously, but after I got done with my cancer surgery, one of my former colleagues from the auditor's office came over to visit with me, and he brought his child along. And the reason the child came along was to thank me because that child was transgender. And he said that his hearing the stories of how this particular person had been supportive of me, and it let him know that his dad was a safe person to come out to. So when you find out that you have inspired somebody that you didn't even know, that's a big win. So when you share your story, you don't know the impact that you may have on someone's life just by letting them know that you faced what they're going through and have survived and thrived.
You definitely have thrived, and I thank you for letting us be one of the venues to share your story. And you had shared with me a article that the AICPA did, so we're gonna link to that article as well.
Okay.
When we publish this. So thank you for sharing that as well.
I apologize for the dogs.
Oh, we could barely hear it in the background.
Oh, okay.
Let me change this. Let me change the slant of this a little bit. So part of what we often say too is that, as accountants or as we work in accounting, that many of us are also perceived as a hero. So do you have any stories where at work where you felt like you've saved the day? Or anything for a client, or actually, in some ways, your real client is actually the taxpayer because you're making sure that everyone's paying the taxes that are due. So, any story to share with us?
When I was working in public accounting, I did a lot of what at the time was known as A133 compliance audits.
Oh my gosh, I haven't heard that in a long time. I used to do those too.
It's now the uniform guidance, and it's completely different, but that's what it was referred to back in the day. Well, I was performing one of those audits at a nonprofit, and I noticed some issues in internal control that raised a bunch of red flags. Well, to make a long story short, this was for a federal grant that if you were a veteran and you had a DD 214, which is honorable discharge, and you got a letter from a landlord that you were about to be evicted, you could take it to this particular nonprofit and they would write a check to the landlord to get you caught up on the rent so that you wouldn't lose your apartment. Well, again, to cut to the chase, this particular person was getting all of his friends, whether they own property or not, to be quote unquote landlords. And they were having fake veterans. So all of this money was going to this particular employee's friends, and we went through and I helped interview the suspects, and we put a stop to that. The guy actually ended up going to prison,
Oh,
and I understand that when he was on the stand, he's because he was in federal court because he was stealing from the VA. He actually made the statement, "I didn't know I was stealing from the federal government. I thought I was just stealing from this nonprofit." So, if that's saving the day, I guess I did, because I stopped that fraud that was still going on that could have ended up costing the nonprofit a lot more money.
yeah, that's definitely. And you're getting the money back into the hands of the people that actually deserve it, the veterans. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
So that was that story.
That definitely sounds like a great story where you definitely saved the day on that one. What do you think makes up a real life superhero? How would you describe that?
I immediately think of my mother, but that's probably not the angle that you wanted to go in.
Oh no,
that,
that works. Tell us about what makes your mother the hero?
Well, I was an accident. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
It's 1967. So put the year in mind, and the way women were looked at and treated and so forth. She was at the time going through a divorce from her first husband, and my sister, she was trying to have a fight for custody with her ex-husband. And in 1967, if she'd shown up pregnant and unmarried, that would have been the end of that custody battle. So she married my stepdad, whom that's where I get the DuPree last name is from him. But she was a florist. She started her own business. I think they had like $100 to their name when they first opened the business, and she supported us through college. And my stepdad was very abusive at times.
Oh.
There's part of him that I still love, that there was a good part, but there was also this other side of him. It's funny when I talk to people from Mercedes now, they always say, "We loved your mom," and most will not even say anything about your dad. But she kept it together. I wanted for nothing. She went without so much to make sure I had what I needed. I would not have, well, let me back up also. I have dyslexia.
Oh my goodness, you've overcome so much.
So I had a very hard time learning to read. So in addition to running the business during the day, I would come home and she'd sit with me with a tape recorder and read my books to me, and then I would play it back, and I'd memorize. How I learned to read was I memorized what the words look like. But if you asked me to spell them, I did, but I knew what they looked like. But when I was having trouble with mathematics, she hired a tutor at $20 an hour, which doesn't sound like much today, but in
That was a lot back then.
That was a lot. And she would take me to Harlingen, which was about 30 minutes drive, so I could go be tutored by this lady. And she took me from fundamentals of mathematics in my freshman year of high school to algebra 1 in 1 year. So again, I owe that all to my mom. She, like I said, she sacrificed so much. I don't know really what she went without so that I could live the life that I live. And she made sure that I had the education that I needed. You can see that family is extremely important to me, both my wife and my child, and then my mother as well.
That's exactly where my mind went
Yeah.
when you started talking about your mother. And she's, as a small business owner, I mean, that's something that all of us as accountants often will end up supporting as well. So that's wonderful in terms of just even the career path. What do you think your superpower is?
I would have to say it's my heart. Um, I'm again, I get this from my mother, but she was extremely kind, and I see myself the same way. When I was working in the CPA firm, San Antonio, for example, there were junior accountants that I knew were not making it, and I kind of took on the role of a mentor to try to help them understand what they needed to understand. And one or two, I think I really helped along the way to become successful.
That's wonderful. That the nurturing comes back up, and so that perhaps is a power that your mother passed on to you as well.
Yeah, if anyone in Mercedes needed something, like I said, she was a florist. If somebody in your family died and she knew you didn't have the money for the funeral sprays or the casket piece, she would sell it definitely under the market value.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us and with the broader public. I love that you really want to help make the trans community more visible. While it's regretful to hear about all of the stories and the challenges that you've had, you've still emerged through all of this, or come through all of this as still thriving. I think despite all the challenges that have been thrown your way, and I think it's very inspirational for anyone else that might be trying to go through what you went through, and really I don't even know where they would look. So thank you for sharing that story with us.
Sure.
If someone would like to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you or to find you? I'm
on Facebook, so you can search for me there. You have my email address. If you want to share that, that's fine.
Great. We'll put that in the show notes. All right. Well, everyone, you've been able to hear Becky's story, and definitely hope that you will join us again for another episode of the ARC podcast. See you again next time.
The Center for Accounting Transformation provides business professionals with a network for utilizing innovations that are ready for adoption, the training and resources necessary to apply those innovations, and an opportunity to engage the talent and community needed to further the pursuit of innovative accounting practices that drive responsible and mindful business performance. Find out more at our website, www.improvetheworld.net. And if you're interested in sharing your own transformation stories, please contact us there.